Okay, so get ready because we're diving into some pretty interesting stuff today.
Yeah, this one's definitely going to make you think.
Exactly. Like we're talking about a total flip-flop, politically speaking, a gay man who's not only saying goodbye to the Democrats, but actually coming out in support of Donald Trump in this election.
You know, it's interesting because we often make assumptions about how certain groups vote.
Right.
But this story really shows how people's individual experiences can lead them to change their views in a really big way.
Absolutely. And the best part is we're getting this straight from the source.
Oh, yeah.
He laid it all out in a social media post, and it's really fascinating. He starts by talking about how he always thought voting Democrat was the compassionate thing to do.
Yeah.
You know, like it was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
But now he feels like the party has really lost its way.
Well, and it's important to remember that for a long time, the Democratic Party was seen as the party of social justice,
Yeah.
you know, fighting for minorities and for equality.
Right.
So it makes sense that someone like him would have started out as a Democrat.
Totally. But he doesn't hold back in describing how disillusioned he is now.
He doesn't.
He calls the Democrats war hungry, a censorship machine.
Yeah.
And basically accuses them of using identity politics and the media to divide people.
Wow.
You can just feel his frustration.
Yeah. Those are some serious accusations.
Definitely.
I think of those terms.
Yeah, good idea.
Like when he says war hungry, for example.
Right.
He could be referring to foreign policy. You know, maybe he sees them pushing for military action that he doesn't agree with.
Makes sense.
Or maybe he's talking about what some people call the culture wars,
Oh, yeah.
where it feels like traditional values are constantly under attack.
That's definitely a hot topic these days.
For sure.
And what about that censorship machine comment?
Right.
That seems directly related to all the concerns about free speech these days.
Absolutely. Especially when it comes to social media.
Yeah, like, are these platforms silencing viewpoints that go against the mainstream narrative?
Exactly. It's a huge debate right now.
And he also goes after what he calls identity politics,
Right.
which seems to be a criticism of how the Democrats frame their message and their policies.
Yeah. It's too much on group identities.
Right.
Instead of appealing to things that we all have in common.
Like shared values or individual merit.
Exactly. And while that approach can connect with some people,
Sure.
it can feel divisive to others.
Right. Like it's pitting groups against each other.
Exactly.
And then he takes it a step further by accusing the Democrats of using lawfare to take down their political opponents.
Whoa. Now that's a strong term.
It is.
Yeah.
So what exactly does he mean by that?
Well, lawfare is basically the idea of weaponizing the legal system. It's not about seeking justice. It's about using lawsuits and legal maneuvers to bog down your opponents, to drain their resources and tarnish their reputation.
Oh, I see. So it's like using the law as a political tool.
Exactly. And some people believe this is becoming more and more common in today's political climate.
It's definitely a concerning thought.
It is.
So if he's so disillusioned with the Democrats, who is he turning to for inspiration?
Good question.
He mentions being influenced by conservative thinkers like Thomas Sowell and Victor Davis Hanson,
Okay.
and commentators like Barry Weiss, Amy Therese, and Midgen Kelly.
Now that's an interesting mix. It really shows how the conservative landscape is changing.
Right.
You have Sowell and Hanson, who are more established voices known for their work on economics, culture, history.
Yeah,
They represent a more traditional intellectual conservatism.
I see.
And then you have Weiss, Therese, who are part of what some people call the intellectual dark web.
I've heard of that.
They often challenge conventional thinking, you know, and they're very critical of what they see as a liberal bias in media and academia.
So he's finding inspiration from various corners of the conservative world.
It seems that way.
And all of this leads to his central point. He believes we're in the middle of a massive political realignment.
Okay.
He says that free thinkers are finding a new home in the conservative movement, which he sees as open, welcoming, and committed to constitutional values.
That's a pretty bold statement.
It is, and it really speaks to this idea that people are redefining their political identities.
Right. Like, what does it mean to be conservative or liberal in today's world?
Exactly.
And that part about a new conservatism being open and welcoming is particularly interesting
I agree.
because it challenges the stereotype of conservatism as being rigid and exclusive.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a growing space within the movement for people who value individual liberty and limited government, but who don't necessarily agree with all the traditional social conservative views.
That's an interesting thought.
It is.
And finally, he ends his post with a call to action. Vote conservative, down the ballot to set things right side up.
I noticed that too.
That phrasing is really powerful.
It is. There's definitely a sense of urgency there.
Like, this isn't just a disagreement about policy. It's a battle for what he sees as fundamental values.
Right, like a fight to restore a moral order.
Exactly.
Yes.
So from lifelong Democrat to supporting Donald Trump, it's been quite a journey.
It really has.
What do you think this tells us about the bigger picture?
Well, I think complex and unpredictable individual political journeys can be.
Definitely.
It challenges the idea that our political beliefs are set in stone.
Right.
And it makes you wonder if the traditional party lines are blurring or if we're seeing a whole reshuffling of the political landscape.
It's a fascinating question.
It is.
Is this just an isolated case, or is it part of a larger trend?
Right.
And if it is a trend, what's driving it?
Those are some really big questions.
They are, and they're definitely worth exploring further.
Absolutely.
So much to think about.
Yeah.
Thanks for diving in with me today.
My pleasure.
Until next time.
See you then.